I find that when I discover something like Pangaea Organica or some other organic food or some other recipe that really draws together organic produce, I'm actually more, it helps me grow as a person. So I can totally relate to what you're saying about that possibility and how it helps you connect to living.
Right.
You know, food helps us do that,
Right.
which is kind of
Grounds
cool.
us in a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So I like what you're saying along those lines. Do you ever find that the coffee business or making it into a business kind of takes away what you want to be doing with Organica?
No, in fact,
Yeah.
If anything, just about the opposite. So
Yeah.
Any small business is going to have you running around and doing all sorts of things. Half the time, especially when we first got started, there were so many things to do that I had no idea how to do them.
Yeah.
But you talk to people, you figure it out, and there are times when it's frightening, and there's times where it's liberating. So that's all to say that there were times when this might have gotten me away from some things. But most of the time, like the last few days especially, talking to people about how to solve our production bottlenecks, all of the marketing objectives that we've set for ourselves. I roll through days getting a lot done, and it's exhilarating. And it's not. There's nothing that's rote about it. There's nothing that it's not routine. Most of the time, it's not predictable. I mean, there are certain.
So, all right, I have a question just right now because I see where you're going with this, and this popped into my mind, and I think it's really interesting. There's nothing routine, and in my mind, I'm thinking there's also nothing routine about roasting a certain amount of coffee. Is each batch different?
The lots of coffee have distinct characters. Yeah. So there's we've got 5 different coffees over there, and the Sumatra is roasted differently from the Mexico or the Brazil, and that's something that every time we do a batch, every time I do a batch here, we hold some of it out to sample it, and I keep a spreadsheet of all sorts of things. So the duration of the roast, the temperatures, the rise over time, even the environmental conditions that day. So the temperature outside that day that has an implication for the temperature in here, all sorts of things, humidity. So most of the time, once we get it dialed in, I stay pretty close to that. But then I find I play with it a little bit. What if I do? We've got 3 switches that control the heat, for example, here. What if I change the pattern that I've grown accustomed to for that lot? And so I'm pushing it a little bit further in one direction, bringing it back, but keeping it in the zone where it's.
Also, I know this about you, since you're so close to the coffee and to the customer right now. It's a very local experience, very local business. And do you have customers that talk to you about that stuff?
Yeah.
That get it in terms of coffee?
Yeah, so at different levels. So we've got a gourmet chef who's just 4 or 5 blocks down the street. It's called Sutra Seattle. And they do local organic food, fabulous place. And he likes the low acidity, so over time we've compared notes about that. I want to sit down with them and play with some of the coffees and do a special blend just for their restaurant.
Sure.
Of course, that stuff changes over time because it's an agricultural product that changes over time. So the blend that we might make this year based on some of the coffees that we have, we might have to adjust it next year to keep it in with Colin's opinion.
Sure. Talk to me about the fair trade. What does that mean, and how did you find out about it?
Well, yeah, if it weren't for fair
it?
trade, I could not have gone into this business.
Yeah.
So with all this research that I had done, all the paying attention to the articles in the magazines and all that sort of thing, going back years and years and years, I was familiar with the abuses that exist in the supply chain, especially for coffee. So coffee was the first fair trade commodity, and it's probably the one that's most known for being a fairly traded commodity. The key to it, they're actually, depending on who you talk to, they might drop different keys to it. For me, the key to it is that there's a third-party auditor, to where in most cases we can't get back to the producing cooperative and know exactly what's happening there. Well, there are a set of standards that are applied across the world to fair trade coffee to make sure that the farmer's getting a fair shake for what he's doing, and that it's not, and that there's a third party that holds everybody to that standard. So even if we had, and we do have some direct relationships, when we have those relationships, there's still fair. It's just still fair trade. So we're not saying that, okay, since we know these folks, we're no longer going to participate in this particular relationship in the fair trade system. We still do everything fair trade through the fair trade system. I've known of cases where people have brought in coffee to North America, and they knew of abusive situations happening in the producing organization, usually a plantation. But it was good coffee, so they decided to disregard the problem back at that location and sell the coffee anyway up here. And oftentimes that ends up being called direct coffee or directly traded coffee.
Sure.
So anybody can use that term, direct coffee, but there's no standard around it. They might indeed have a direct relationship, but that doesn't mean that there's not an abuse happening at the source. And really, when it comes to it, there could be abusive situations in fair trade coffee as well. So it's a matter of just constantly trying to raise the bar with regard to all of the social and environmental relationships.
Definitely.